So will you be able to see the other people joining, like the participants?
It shouldn't, but this is also oh yeah, people are joining.
Hey guys, we're just going to give ourselves just a few minutes to let everybody join. Probably wait until around 5:02 Central Standard Time so everybody can join in. And Samantha and I, Dan at VisualFizz here, will begin our conversation. And then just an FYI for everybody who is joining right now, I'll probably repeat it a couple of times. You are able to chat in the chat box. One of our team members, Sydney, who is our marketing manager, will also be available for any questions. If you have any questions that you want to ask, that you're asking, and you want to ask during our conversation here, there will be Q&A. I'm probably, like I said, going to repeat this a couple times. But if anyone feels free or wants to feel free to introduce themselves in the side channel as we're getting started, feel free to do so. We'll get started in just a minute. Back in the day, we used to network and have drinks in our hands and shake people's hands, but that's a thing of the past now.
Oh, don't worry, I already took a shot.
Okay, perfect. Then we're good.
I had to calm the nerves a little bit.
More.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just one though.
That's okay. No, I mean, look, our logo is a Collins glass, so we can't judge here at VisualFizz.
Perfect.
Cool. So we're a couple minutes in. If anyone is joining us later, that's okay. Feel free to comment below, like I said, in the chat area. But thanks so much, everyone, for coming to the first virtual VisualFizz Growth Series. This is not our usual setup. Normally, we're somewhere in a cool venue talking to very unique business owners, entrepreneurs, marketing directors, professionals, you name it. We launched this a year ago, pre-COVID. And now we're all stuck in our homes and we can't shake hands with anybody, but we can still enjoy a drink. For anybody who does not know who VisualFizz is or what VisualFizz is, we are a full-service digital marketing firm. We've been around since 2016, so just about 4 years now, and we are based in Chicago. We do work predominantly kind of in two spaces. We're 50% agnostic and 50% in the construction, manufacturing, and industrial space. We serve clients large and small, but really have our foot in the door with a lot of growth-oriented mid-sized companies. It's really our bread and butter. I want to thank Samantha for coming on today. Samantha is the Director of Marketing at Spreveri's Custom Counters. I got to meet Samantha briefly just a few weeks ago while we were planning, actually right before we started planning the growth series, because we were talking about the luxury space and how it's changed a little bit and how COVID's changed, many of our lives in many different ways. So Samantha, really appreciate you coming on. Feel free to give the crowd here just a little brief introduction, and I'll give them an introduction to how this whole growth series works.
Fantastic. Yes, thanks, Dan. Hi, I'm Sam Tobias. I am actually originally from Chicago. Grew up between Chicago and Indiana. Went to Indiana University. Really loved journalism and all things media and publishing. Currently, I'm at Spreveri's Custom Counters, like Dan said. We are super excited to kind of, really branch out all of the awareness for the brand. And I work alongside Danielle Spreveri and the Spreveri team and her dad and her cousin. And I'm about 7 weeks in now. All very exciting in the interior space, which I kind of accidentally fell into about 10 years ago, but we'll get all into that. And I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming. And you do come from modern luxury, and we'll talk about that as well. And it's a really interesting kind of progression of how you got to where you are. But so for everyone who hasn't done or been a part of this process here, we've built the growth series very similarly to how I built this, which is a podcast by Guy Raz. And it focuses a lot on entrepreneurs and founders who've grown substantial companies and have been able to get them acquired or to grow them to a sizable brand. So from our end, we're kind of taking a more local approach here, which is just really fun because we get to talk to real people and have that one-on-one conversation. We're going to dive into Samantha's life a little bit. Sometimes we get, based on conversations, a little deeper, and we find out about the childhood and how they grew up and how they got to where they are. So it's going to be a really interesting 45 minutes to an hour here. So Samantha, I'd love to hear more about you know, your upbringing. You know, you said you're Chicago born and raised, Chicagoland. Would love to hear how it all got started.
Yes, so I'm actually originally from LaGrange Park, which is a southwest suburb. My parents are in the medical field, so this is a far departure on the other side of the spectrum from what we are, you know, grew up and are used to. I would say my first taste of wanting to get into the industry was kind of being around my aunt and uncle in New York. They're both on the creative side, business, tech, you know, world out in New York City. My aunt used to be the senior vice president for Victoria's Secret, and they introduced me. One of my first internships was in New York, working at Us Weekly as a fact checker on the editorial side. At the time, my uncle's cousin was the editor-in-chief, so obviously I got a little bit of special privilege and treatment. But it was just opened my eyes from being, you know, living and being in the Midwest, kind of what the whole New York world was. I was 17 years old. I hadn't even graduated high school yet. And I really just fell in love, always loved magazines, runway shows, fashion, retail, publishing, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. I was on the newspaper team in high school, the Inklings, go Bulldogs, and ended up checking out a couple different journalism schools in the Midwest. And I ended up going to Indiana University and did journalism and communications there. And I did various internships because I wanted to see what part of media and publishing I was interested in. So I also did an internship and worked for the late night show with Conan O'Brien, the NBC. So I worked in Rockefeller. So I got my feet wet in broadcasting. I worked for a world music PR firm in Bloomington, Indiana, and we repped bands like Ladysmith, Black Mambazo, Say George. So it was a real kind of eye-opening experience to be in this small, you know, liberal arts, you know, state college town, and be again more open to all these experiences and especially musical tastes. So getting more of like the radio, PR, music taste that way. And then my senior year of Indiana, I worked actually at an engineering architecture firm in Indianapolis that also specialized in municipalities and work over in Dubai. And I worked in the marketing department there. So our main job was basically to take mayors out to casinos and steak dinners and get them drunk and have them bid on our projects. So it was my first taste into kind of the architectural design world. Super fun. Everyone was, you know, lovely and outgoing. So after school, I moved back to Chicago, and it was 2007, 2008. So we all know the world took a huge hit then, the economy and the hiring market. So
can't relate right now, right?
Yeah. I can't believe we've had 2 of these in our lifetimes already. I worked actually at a retail boutique called Stinky Pants. It was owned by a local news anchor, Michelle Alegria. I love her, one of my first mentors here in Chicago. And that was really when Facebook and social media became something for businesses to amplify their platforms, their messaging, and get, you know, in-store events and those types of elements out into the world. So that was kind of my first taste of social media for business, because obviously, I'm going to date myself, Facebook came to Indiana University, I think, when we were like juniors in college. So that's like 2006. So that was really interesting. I did that for about 8 months. I finally got an internship at the Tribune Company for Chicago Magazine, and they ended up hiring me 2 weeks later full time. And I spent 6.5 years there working my way up from an intern, coordinator, specialist, to manager. And then I ended up leaving to actually work at an interiors PR firm. So again, kind of, we had an interiors magazine under the Tribune umbrella, and then went over to a PR firm here locally. And then from there, I got recruited for Modern Luxury, you know, the larger umbrella here in Chicago.
Definitely. Yeah, that sounds great. And I would say, you know, based on what you mentioned, would you attribute a lot of this knowledge and understanding of not only the luxury space, but all of these, you know, moving parts from entertainment, public relations, just general content, magazines, et cetera, print, to your ability to just travel and, you know, get a slice of life in different places? Because that, you know, has been to New York, understands there's a very large difference from the Midwest and going to the big city there and living that life. Would you say that as you've been traveling, you're up, which turned you into who you are today?
I think so. I think what I always mention and encourage to all of our, you know, when we're at Modern Luxury, we had all of our interns and intern programs, and even all the mentees that I have now, especially with the COVID situation happening, is go for any open position, either internship or entry level when you graduate, because you may be surprised in what you like and what you don't like. I went to Indiana University thinking I was going to write for a newspaper, not necessarily a fashion magazine. I got to like junior year and it was like J200 and it was absolutely awful. Like all these writing projects they had us do. And I was like, this is not what I want to do. I want to be more on like, you know, the go, go, go. And I discovered the marketing sales side of it. And that just totally spoke to me. So I think going out and, you know, having all the different internship experiences really honed in and narrowed down, okay, this is what I like in this industry. And then I went for it, like in that direction.
I totally agree. You know, I think you have to, it's all based on experiences, and the more times you get to dip your hands into things, you really kind of create a hybrid of what you like and don't like, and you get to know exactly, you know, from the beginning. Because even with college, I mean, you learned pretty early on, thankfully, even though it was through that semester, but a lot of people find out when they're 40 or 50 that they hate what they do, and they have to kind of figure it out. So I completely agree that the more that you kind of dip your toes into or hands into, as I put it, you know, you could really learn a lot. I'd love to learn more about your experience. And when we chatted a little bit about the modern luxury era of your life, there were some very, very cool stories. I was like, I actually asked Samantha, I was like, can you invite me to some of these events? Because I'd really like to join them. And she's like, you have to continue working on your net worth here. And I was like, all right, well, why do you think we host these events? And hey, come on, guys. No, but it, you know, sounded really cool. So I'd love to chat through a couple of the events that you've worked on in the past, as well as additional work that you've done at Modern Luxury, and how that's kind of also helped you grow internally, and then also through your network, et cetera.
Absolutely. So when I got recruited from the PR firm to Modern Luxury, at that time we had 8 publications. So we had our CS brand, which is our flagship downtown, you know, eat, see, drink, do, shop. We had our North Shore brand, interiors, weddings, date book, which is all about black tie fundraisers and galas here in Chicago. Men's book, which obviously spoke to, you know, the distinguished gentleman in Chicago, what watches to wear, what car to drive. And so I got to really, a lot of the companies and brands that I had worked with previously under the Tribune umbrella were very similar, a little more on the national side as far as like the Chanel, the Hermes, the Prada, Graf, Tiffany's, all of those brands. They started working our way into our portfolio here locally. And we've done some really cool things with integrating not only national and local luxury brands, but also into our own events and experiences for clients. I would say one of the most recent integrations that we had, and I see Sarah Silvestri's on here, so I'm going to pull her into this. Back in, I believe it was November, we did a really cool collaboration with Simon G, the diamond jeweler. They were looking to amplify their philanthropic angle and program in the local markets. And they wanted us to find an influencer that had this certain criteria, which was a very detailed, you know, short list. As it happened to be, one of our sales reps was at a Cubs game and was sitting next to Taylor Kinney from Chicago Fire, the actor, and one of the newest additions to the cast, Miranda Ray Mayo. She came in the next day and was like, hey, I think I found your girl. So we had a couple conversations over the, you know, a couple weeks. She was just so down to earth, lovely, very spiritual, very into the philanthropic angle of Chicago, kind of helping like the younger boys and girls clubs down here in downtown. And we put together this beautifully executed event at a brand new venue with it was like a diamond dinner. So we had all these diamonds everywhere kind of staged. She came in, we actually did a photo shoot with her prior, ran an advertorial piece, and she hosted dinner. So it was a really unique way of kind of integrating a national brand with a local angle, with still making it elevated in luxury.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I'm really excited to go to the next one, honestly. But, you know, let me ask you this question, because this is something that comes up a lot, especially with individuals who are either young entrepreneurs or trying to, you know, grow their network. We always hear these stories of you find that person at a game, right? It's like, okay, great. But like, how did you build that network? What did it take to find, you know, the right individuals at that time that will continue growing? Because I think what I've heard in the past is you really have to get lucky once, and that kind of allows people to snowball effect into this lifestyle, which is kind of the luxury space, or even just getting to know the right connections as you continue to progress in your career. What would you recommend, or maybe either what would you recommend or what would you say you've done on your end to help you get those right connections at those right times?
I would say personally, I've been told that, I mean, I am not afraid to talk to anybody. I can pretty much find something in common between myself and someone else, whether it's where are you from, where'd you go to school, what industry are you in, like find out different, are you in a certain organization or philanthropic, club. I try to find like that common denominator. And I think because I come off very genuine and authentic, because I am, people respond to that. And I believe I've grown my network and my surroundings and my colleagues, both, past and current, is that I'm willing to help anybody. I'm willing to offer a connection, do an introduction, create a partnership. I'm really just about helping. I'm a dot connector. I really want to help brands connect to consumers, people connect to people, brands connect to the market. And I think just, I think it is hard. And I've noticed, even like with the younger generation, some people get a little timid about, approaching individuals that might be older or we're seeing more established, and just, feeling nervous about talking to them or networking with them. And really it's just simple. Like, hey, what's your name? Like, where are you from? Like, what's your sign? What do you drink? I mean, find anything just to kind of start the conversation. And then from there, I think it just kind of spirals. Like you just kind of, in Chicago, seems like a big city, but it's like a small town feel. I mean, everybody pretty much knows everybody, especially in our industry. A lot of it's the same players. You just kind of, shift around to different places, like different brands.
Definitely. No, that makes perfect sense. And I agree. It's part of it just talking to the person and getting some commonality, getting to know who they know and building it up from there. But I totally agree as well, because I think something that comes up is when you're making a connection, a lot of individuals think, where's my reward for this? What is it in for, what's in for me? And I think what you just mentioned solves that. It's if I connect you with someone or you connect someone to me, you don't get anything back, right? But in 6 months, I remember that you did this nice favor, and that will kind of come as a reciprocate, right? Like you will get that back in some capacity. That's something that I think I've been trying to do a little bit more this year too, especially as we're cooped up in our homes. So that's really, I agree with that completely.
I also, what I want to add to that is I think you trust your gut intuition. I listen to my gut intuition a lot when it comes to work and business, and even just meeting new individuals. I think starting off in this industry so young, I've really understood kind of who really wants something from you and is trying to either social climb or get involved or just kind of using you, versus who is actually an authentic person that is like, let's make a connection. Let's do this. Come to this party. Let me introduce you to my friend. Oh, you want to get on this board? I have a connection. That's really, truly helping you. And I think as you get older with this experience, trusting your gut instinct on, who's a good person, who's going to be good for you in the long run. And you don't have to be best friends with everybody, but keeping that good relationship going throughout the years, through all the different phases of your career, I think is crucial and important to being successful.
Definitely agree. And so let's get into where you're at today. I know right now the topic of conversation for everybody is COVID. COVID, and I can't listen about COVID anymore. I'm sure everybody else is the same, but it has affected a lot of people's lives. So I want to get to that part in a little bit, but I definitely want to hear a little bit more about, because this is how you got into this particular role, is through people that you know as well. Friends, you mentioned friends. So I'd love to hear more about, where you're at, who are they? What's, give, you can do a little bit of promotion here. That's okay.
Yeah. No. So, we got plugs for berries.
No, yeah.
So Danielle is actually a really good girlfriend of a girl who used to be on my marketing team. So Stephanie Jacom, I don't know if you're on here. Shout out to her. Shout out to all my mod Lexers on right now. So I know Bryant's on, Sarah's on. I hope Steph is on. But I met Danielle through Stephanie. Stephanie was on our marketing team for a year. And we hit it off. And I've known Danielle for probably about, I would say, we were trying to figure this out the other day. It was like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years. And when I finally understood kind of what she did for a living, I was like, oh my God, well, you should come to the events. Like, this is perfect for you. Networking, interiors. Mm-hmm. So she started coming to the events and understanding kind of our business model and how it can work for her. So introducing her to interior designers and builders is kind of helping her, get her name out there, the family name, and building her Rolodex. So obviously COVID hit this year, and Modern Luxury let go a lot of individuals around the July timeframe, and I we were out to dinner with Steph and Danielle, and we were just having a conversation. And I was like, this sounds interesting. I'd love to, nitty gritty, get down to like the brass tacks, like what you actually do and what the company does, because as far as fabrication goes, I've never obviously been directly involved. But it's quite fascinating. It definitely sharpens your skills on the geology side of science. So getting to know all the different stone materials has been fun and challenging. And math has now come back into play, which is,
Absolutely.
We're getting there.
And what seeps into those stones, right? Which is half the battle. Like, how do you not get stains in your stones?
Well, you have to choose quartz, right, Danielle? Yeah. You got to go the quartz route for sure, or corian. This is what I'm learning.
There you go.
So we had this great day of shadowing, and it's a 50 plus year family run and operated 3rd generation company. It's got 50,000 square feet of facility. It's massive. And there's a showroom in there as well. So once you actually saw it, like, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is like a lot more involved and larger production than I was, expecting. I was expecting like a wood shop somewhere, I have no idea. And it's just all this beautiful stone and the way it's showcased and just the different ways they can cut these. And it's not just custom counters. I learned they can do a lot of different individual things. So like obviously bathroom vanities, they can do showers and wall coverings, fireplaces. It's crazy what we can do now with this innovative technology. So now I think it's all about, okay, understanding the message, figure out the storytelling, and get it back into the market in a luxury way. So connecting with a lot of the interior designers, builders, and architects that I've worked with throughout 10 years here in Chicago with, the different multiple magazines and the PR brand, is really just getting the word out. And that's what I've been doing. It's like, hey, I know you haven't heard from me in a couple months. Want to let you know this is what I'm up to. This is what I'm doing. You've got to check us out. Love to give you a tour. Obviously, some people may be a little hesitant because of COVID, but really just want to spread the word and just like really help out branding the company in an elevated way downtown, so people can understand, we're not just like a stone cut shop. Yeah,
no, definitely. That's really interesting, and it's definitely a pivot altogether. In some capacity it is, in some capacity it isn't, because you said you work heavily in interior design, so it definitely makes sense kind of through a series of different moving parts how you ended up there.
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about luxury in general, the luxury space, and then talk about how COVID kind of hit it, because I think in some capacity you can't say the luxury industry died due to COVID, because so much is kind of changing, but there's a huge change in the way that luxury is being presented, along with anything else, anything from marketing to, buying toilet paper for a while. So I want to talk about kind of luxury as a whole. It's interesting because it seems the dynamic of luxury has shifted quite a bit over the past, let's say, 10 years versus 20 years versus 50 years ago. Can you kind of go into detail about, what the luxury industry kind of looks like now and maybe for the future versus what it looked like? You could give me the decade range of the 70s or 80s or something like that.
Sure. So actually I did a little research, and I found some great articles, which I can send to you to include if you want for a post follow-up and when you post this on your website. Sure. But CNBC actually had a really interesting article that just came out, and they said that the luxury apparel and accessories consignment grew to $24 billion before COVID. And they had this whole article about resale luxury right now, which I'll get into in a second here. But I did talk to a few, so I did a little research in twofold. I talked to a lot of individuals in that higher net worth category and just asked them, how are you spending your money in the last 6 months and then looking forward in 6 months? And it was definitely quite interesting based on situations. A couple of financial guys and doctors that I had spoke to were like, listen, I'm turning 50 in a couple months. I'm still buying that high-end Porsche that I've been saving for. Or, we're not going on family vacations this year, and maybe not next year. So we're going to put in that $40,000 in-ground pool. So I think at a certain level, individuals are still spending money on luxury items in just a more thoughtful way. A lot of the women that I spoke to who, I guess it depends on how many, luxury items you buy a year, if you buy them weekly, monthly, quarterly, are thinking more strategically about what they purchase. It's more iconic, timeless pieces. They're spending more money on jewelry, watches, and bags versus throwaway items, because a lot of what, especially like our industry with publishing, media, events, Dressing up and buying new clothes and following these fashion trends were dependent on social activities. And now that has totally gone away, so individuals might be buying luxury cashmere sets, lounge sets, but they're still looking at that bag they've been wanting or saving for, or that watch or that piece of jewelry that will probably, if you want to go Hermes or Cartier, that really the value won't decrease. Also, on the flip side of that, kind of going with this resale, which I thought was very interesting, is a lot of individuals have started putting their luxury items up for sale. Or, for example, like my generation, I guess younger, people that still want those luxury items are looking more towards the resale consignment industry to purchase those items without spending the full price ticket. So there was a lot of interesting tidbits and details that the CNBC article had too, which I loved. I love this quote here. More people are going to resale sites to sell their possessions out of necessity, including higher income people who've lost their jobs. Well-heeled people with expensive possessions, especially called the Henrys, I've never heard this, high earners not rich yet, who may be eager to sell their high-end apparel and accessories or start to do so if anxiety and insecurity continues to rise. So I thought that was just very interesting to kind of see the both sides of the coin here. And that just goes for like retail. I know we talked a little bit about prior to starting this, a lot of like health and wellness is now considered the new luxury. Self-care has obviously taken off, all the beauty products, skin, everybody has like a 12-step, skincare routine now, myself included. And then also Peloton. I know that Danielle and I were talking about Peloton earlier today, and Peloton sales are up. It's kind of like a status symbol now. And a lot of girls that I know in my inner circle have purchased them, starting in April till like current day. So it's very interesting to see where everyone's spending their money.
It is, and this feature was presented to you by Peloton. If you'd like, no, I'm just kidding. No, but it definitely
yes, I'm also sponsored
sense.
by Peloton. I'm trying to get a free Peloton.
You look at the link, at the side here. No, but that definitely makes sense, and I could see where those individuals who have been, they know this is temporary. There were some statistics that the rich got richer in some respects, and where you're seeing those people starting to sell their goods. Also makes sense. It's also interesting to find that men continue to buy cars and put pools in their yards. But I did actually read up into that a little bit, because the real estate market, though it was, especially maybe in Chicago, where it has been increasing year over year, at this point, with particularly the McMansions of the world, when you go into the first and second tier suburbs, they were struggling for a long time. And now I found, upon doing some research, that a lot of these suburbs and other areas, due to COVID and the need for a yard and things like that, have skyrocketed. You can't find a house for sale that has an in-ground pool, or that has a backyard, because people have gone. Some people have shifted into that environment, and I think that makes sense. It seems like a lot of people are still maintaining. They're waiting for the real estate market to crash a little bit so they could purchase something. But I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about, because this is a space that you're kind of in. I mean, it's not the real estate space real estate's doing. Are you finding that with the custom counters, that there are more for renovation instead of, maybe they're buying it at that, like like it's already fully completed, or are you finding kind of a mix? Like, I'm interested to hear a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So actually, Danielle and I and the Surveyors team actually had a conversation about this last week, more so about the interiors, not necessarily like real estate, but obviously more people obviously staying at home, which makes sense. Individuals that either had money set aside or, had been looking at doing a project for a while. The residential interior project space and remodel space has just totally skyrocketed. That's like a large portion of what Surveyors is part of their business. Obviously, they do a lot of commercial projects as well, but what we're seeing is a sharp increase in even small things like little bathroom vanities to redoing full kitchens. It kind of runs the gamut too as far as price point too. I mean, some people are just, I would say I've noticed a lot of individuals and so more so a lot of individuals my age looking at buying places outside of the city versus staying in the city. It's kind of 50-50. But then when you do buy, you get excited, you want to make it your own. And so one of the, you know, if you're going to spend that much time there, especially in the kitchen, especially if we go back into a shelter in place for the fall, winter, I think that's top of the priority list. They want to invest a little more, make it homey, make it cozy. And that's what we're seeing as far as like our residential side of the business, which we're really excited about because I think some people are stepping out of their comfort zones. We saw this trend in like white kitchens for years. And Danielle always says, we get really excited when someone comes in and they want to do something crazy in the kitchen. Like, you know, they want to do a black, you know, I call it, it's the black panda marble. And it's fantastic and it's super sexy. It's actually the background of my computer right now. But we really want people to like get excited about it and come to us. And if you have an interior designer or a general contractor or not, we're here to help you and we're here to make the process easier. And it's really cool to see kind of all these like kitchen design home trends happening that's really making like people happy. It's an impactful decision that they're making despite obviously the doom and gloom of the world right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it keeps, you know, in some capacity, it just keeps people busy, which is nice. You know, they're happy, they're working on things. They probably included their significant other or their kids or something like that. That's very cool. I want to talk a little bit about other individuals, because what happened during the last recession, which these two are kind of different, but there was a huge spike in entrepreneurship, a lot of new business, you know, so at the end of the tunnel, there was actually something of value. And I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about, you know, what do you think regarding with COVID happening? And there are a lot of people who follow VisualFizz who are founders and entrepreneurs and marketers that may be either looking for a job or they're looking to build a job or, you know, whatever that kind of looks like. What can they be doing to kind of get to that next step in a time where it's a, you know, you don't really know what's happening, especially as we kind of, like you mentioned, get into the fall and the winter and people start to, you know, almost go back to sheltering in place because they can't sit at a restaurant outside. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts there.
Absolutely. So I think it's a two-part answer on this. I think one, what I've told a couple of mentees that I've been talking to is, as far as being out of work and being out of work for multiple months, is thinking outside the box, right? So I, you know, off the top of my head, did I think I was going to be working for a custom fabrication company? No, but it directly is transferable and relatable as far as my marketing skills, my experience, my Rolodex, the network. And it's fun and it's family run and they're cool. And what we're doing is really cool. And we just have to get the word out about it. I think if you're stuck in this, you know, vision of this is how I thought my life was going to be, I was going to do this, then do this, then do this. You're going to be disappointed. You're going to be stuck in a rut. You're not going to be able to open your eyes to other opportunities. You know, for example, you might have to take a step backwards in a different industry to even move forward in a new industry. I think also at the time when everything started and shut down, modern luxury, I would say, was never like a work from home model. We always were expected to be in the office. Obviously, we had events, client meetings. And what I found interesting, even for myself and our team and our clients, and even moving forward, is that everybody had to adapt to working from home and making it work for them in whatever way that made sense. And now it's interesting that all these companies have learned, well, maybe I don't need an oversized office with this overhead to have employees and have this business run. Everything can be basically in the cloud. So one of the other companies I interviewed with during this was an agency that had been totally remote. Everybody was remote. That was the format. That was how they started, how they founded themselves. And then COVID happened and the business model took off. So it's really interesting to see how you can have traditional work settings and a direction of your career, and then all of a sudden just flip totally on your ass 3 months later, and everybody has to be a chameleon and be adaptable and figure out how is this going to work for me moving forward. And I also went through that. I was thinking to myself, okay, what if I don't move forward with Strawberries? What does the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months look like for me? And what if we go back to shelter in place? Then it's Q1. Is anyone going to be hiring? Am I going to be out of a job next year? So you have to think on your toes. You have to open your mind. You have to be open to other opportunities. Like I even looked at marketing manager positions at digital agencies because I know I didn't have direct digital experience, but I'd be willing to take a step back in title to learn more to then excel forward in a different, a different path, but like same industry.
Totally. No, it makes perfect sense. And I'll tell you this, when we launched VisualFizz, because I'm actually traveling right now, during COVID, I'm taking this opportunity to go and travel through the East Coast and the South. But we built this business on that model and that principle. So we've always had, like a shared office space or, a small office that we can keep kind of as a central home. We're Chicago born and raised, love that about ourselves. But we have, a team that is, they're working moms, they're individuals who prefer to not commute an hour and a half in the snow. And when we launched the business, we kind of grew. So we wanted to have a place where we can meet up a couple times a week, but we never had that type of model where you have to be in the office. And when COVID hit, the first couple of months we'll just wait with everybody else. And once people starting to get out of their panic mode, I mean, we took off. We were busier than ever. Right now, we're busier than we ever been. So it's interesting you mentioned that, because more companies are finding that with the time that you save not having to commute every day and dealing with all of those hassles, even though people do have right now some of the issues like not having childcare and having a bunch of dogs that barking, behind them, or like having their kid walk up to them during a meeting, they're still getting so much work out of their day because of the lack of distractions otherwise. So I totally agree with you there. And then to your other point, hiring for a role, from my end, being a digital agency, we love to hire entrepreneurs and individuals like yourself, because you come from a wealth of experience that isn't the agency. If somebody comes from the agency and they live the agency life forever, they don't really have that same type of experience from real life. So it's good to have a well-balanced team of both. So I completely agree with you there. It's finding that little community that makes sense. Actually, that's going to be my next question. But finding that community that makes sense for you, and then just sticking with it, and growing with it. And I did want to ask, because I am, as I look through your some of the information about you, you were asked to be one of the founding members of the Chicago Soho House. Is that? And so I'm curious, what's that? Why did they choose you? And I'd be interested also just to understand, because they're very community centric and it's a very specific type of community. And you think that helps individuals having that type of community and building that up? I mean, we all know the obvious answer is generally having a community is, but, what can people, because it's an investment of time, energy, and there may not be a result for months and years. So I'm just interested to hear a little bit more about your take on community, because it seems like you've been part of a number of them.
Yeah, I love being a part of the, creative culture community here in Chicago. That's funny that you brought that up. So let's see if I can, it's like, my friends, dogs, neighbors, lawnmowers, kids connection. A good friend of mine from college, her ex-boyfriend started an agency in New York. He was friends with the Soho House founder's son. They were looking, so this had to been, this was, 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah.
They were looking at Chicago as a market to open. And he is actually originally from Chicago, but has never moved back after college. So he went to college in New York and stayed out there. He's like, you got to talk to my girl, Sam. She works at the magazine there. She knows everybody, everything. And I was like, well, thank you. That's such an honor. So he came to town. He emailed me. He's like, I'd love to just grab coffee with you, pick your brain. And he asked me about all the different neighborhoods and where he thought, in my input, where he'd be successful building Soho House Chicago, based on, what he's researched as far as other clubs there, social clubs, alumni clubs, things like that. And they're British, they're from England. So he obviously had no idea, the nitty gritty kind of what goes on here in Chicago. So it's very interesting to kind of get an insider's perspective on, they're looking at this market. Why are they looking at this market? Where they're going to build it, who they're targeting, because we don't have a lot of celebrities here. I mean, we do have a lot of artists and, musicians and creatives and, tech people, which is kind of who they target. They don't target your traditional business, medical, law individuals as their demographic, their guests, their clients. So it was just really interesting to kind of get his perspective on why Chicago's cool. We got to get there. Now, where do we build? And that's kind of how that came about. So when they decided, they built it and everything came about, I applied for membership there and they gave me the founding member card and title, which was fantastic. It was so great. But yeah, it's a great place to be. I think it's gone through its waves, ups and downs. It's a great way to network. It's a cool scene. There's always very unique and colorful characters that are there. So it's always a good time when you go there. I would say besides Soho House, I think just joining different boards, affiliations, organizations, anything that you're passionate about or that's relatable to your industry, which is actually funny you brought this up because Danielle and I had this conversation today about which design organizations we should join now that I'm like back in the design world. So we were kind of going through a list of them and like, okay, you take this one, I'll take this one. So we can kind of spread ourselves out, but kind of, re-immerse ourselves back into those affiliations to get our name out there and use it for networking opportunities when they start having events again. But just to be around like-minded people and other individuals in our industry.
Definitely. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I'm sure, that it all goes back really to, who you know. And I mean, obviously there's a lot of your own personal brand and your own messaging in a sense, right? And how your perception, how people perceive you, which has been great. You have some shout outs in our chat here about how awesome you are. So I'm glad to be talking.
I know, like I'm trying to read them as we're talking too. I was like, oh gosh.
I know. But that's really cool. And I'd say, how would this will be kind of my last question before Q&As, and just a quick, who hasn't been here yet, feel free to send over either through a private message or through the general chat your questions, and we'll get through as many as we can, kind of in a speed round, if you will. But I'm going to ask one more question. As it almost goes back to the other one that I asked, but how do individuals like entrepreneurs, like individuals who maybe aren't quite at the level of director of marketing, how do they get involved in these types of organizations, when their voice is maybe a little less heard than others?
I mean, it depends. I mean, if you can give me a specific answer, I can give you a more specific answer. But specifically for like our industry, I would say, getting your foot in the door any way you can, whether that's at a company, volunteering somewhere, joining a professional group. And you don't have to be the most outgoing person. I think that just finding the more, if you cast your net, the more places that you actually apply and get involved. You may not like one place and so you're like, that's not for me. It wasn't a strong enough board or initiative or goals, or the people weren't friendly, or whatever your reason is. Again, it's like you have to try more things and just be like, oh, I tried this once, it didn't work. I mean, right? Like it's not going to happen for you. I think, researching all the different elements for your industry and what you want to do, and then apply, volunteer, show up. I mean, even if it's like you want to get into events, you've never done events before, I mean, apply to like a Kehoe or an HMR or and be like, hey, I just want to shadow someone for the day, or I want to help you guys out, like pro bono, you don't have to pay me. I just want to learn the industry. I've done plenty of like free, apprenticeships just to understand a certain aspect of a business. So I have that firsthand knowledge, and then I can be like, okay, I can take away that, add it to this, and now I can move forward. I think that there's so many opportunities out there. I mean, even Chicago, we're looking today for all the design groups. There's actually more design affiliations now than there was 5 years ago when I was, fully immersed in this industry. And it's wild. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, there's Facebook groups, there's clubs, organizations, there's philanthropic organizations that are involved. So I think just doing your research, doing more than just one thing to see if it works, or reach out. I know, actually, I'm going to shout out to Bryant right now. Actually, Bryant is a shining example of someone who hustles the hardest I've ever seen as an intern. When he was an intern with us a couple years ago, he had like 4 jobs, and he was in school full time, and he would reach out, and he still does, reach out to individuals that he sees on LinkedIn, and he's like, I want to be that person. I want her job. I'm going to message her and say, hey, I want to buy you coffee. I want to talk to you. I want to pick your brain. Right. So, I mean, we love that kind of stuff. I always offer pro bono career development advice, resume workshops with all of our interns and individuals that I know. So I think, just like biting the bullet, move forward. Don't be afraid, reach out. Sure, you probably may not hear back from them, but I think it's worth a shot. And if you find someone in a job that you want, and yes, it could be 5, 7, 10 years down the road, give them a shout, LinkedIn them, message them. I think that's the way, especially in our industry, to be seen, be heard, and get your foot in the door to move forward.
Totally. No, I completely agree. For us, it's been so heavily based on even collaborations a little bit. That's part of why we did Growth Series, because you and I may not have something in particular common at one time, but now we're talking, right? We're having a conversation. Everybody who's watching and listening is part of that community in a sense. And, you know, it's all about asking, you know, that's why we built this thing. And what I found is, especially once you can offer something to individuals, they start to listen more. This is kind of going out for anybody who's kind of in that place where they're growing still. I contacted individuals who are way above kind of my level because they know they know I'm marketing to them, but I started asking them if we can do things for them, offer a free, you know, this and that, or have them on our growth series, and they suddenly started to respond. So I think, you know, especially what you mentioned, Samantha, being an asset, you know, asking for help, you know, asking to be part of something to learn. A lot of people who are like yourself and like myself here, you want to give back a little bit and provide any insight that you can to, you know, to offer kind of that person, because, you know, one day they're going to be director of marketing and you're going to look for a job.
Right.
So you never know what happens.
I'll be out of the job.
It's like, hey, remember me? So cool. So we're at 45 here, and we're gonna ask some questions. It's gonna be a little bit more rapid fire, so the answers will be about, you know, 1 to 2 minutes each. Everybody who's here, feel free to continue asking. Don't worry, it's okay. You know, feel free to ask questions. I'll start kind of from the top. So what are some key elements of branding that businesses should be sure to include in the luxury space?
Ooh, that's a good one. In general, or are you thinking a specific category?
No, let's just keep it, pretty general. Like when it comes to, you know, luxury, you know, what should we focus on in terms of the branding?
So
I like a general question.
Yeah, so I think one thing which we talked about before was kind of the luxury experience as it relates to branding. So because of what's going on in the world right now, a lot of what we've done at our events, we kind of prided ourselves on this white glove service. So yes, of course, you see a brand ad, or you can walk into a Chanel store, peruse, touch, feel, you know, the whole sensory experience. But what those brands want to accomplish when they approach modern luxury, or someone of, you know, I'm not saying my level, but someone who knows kind of like, you know, marinates on what they're looking for and how to execute it in the marketplace, and then understand how to develop a program for them that is different from someone just walking into a store. So you want that white glove experience. You want that little something extra. You know, you want to be greeted with a glass of champagne, or a little branded takeaway bag, or something else. Actually, I'm going to shout out to Max on this one. I actually went into the Cartier store just last week, and we were perusing around. It was like one person per shopper. It just like felt so safe, secure, elegant, elevated. And though we did not get a glass of champagne, which is a little bummed about, I was getting something fixed. And on the way out, I was like, oh, you know what? Besides this bulky thing that I have, like, do you have something that's just like a little bit like sleeker, more discreet, that I could put something in to travel with? And they gave me a branded Cartier bag, like a little velvet pouch Cartier bag. And it just like, my jaw like dropped. I was like, I mean, this is amazing. Like, it's just those kind of touch points and white glove service and brand experiences, I think, is what individuals looking to spend money in the luxury space are looking for in return. Like, we're going to spend all this money. Like, I want a little something extra, you know? I think for branding, it can run the gamut, right? I mean, there's luxury liquor, there's luxury auto, there's luxury timepieces, there's luxury dining, you know, travel, health and wellness. Like I said, I think everyone, it depends on what level you're at, but everyone is looking for that little something extra. They want to feel special, especially in these times. If they're going to spend their hard-earned money on it, or their hard-earned, you know, stimulus checks, that they want to feel special about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. And I know this is something we actually chatted about during our first conversation was, you know, when you go into a hotel and, you know, you might be spending $200, $300, $400 a night, you know, especially in the luxury, it could be $1,000 to $2,000 a night. Having something as simple as a $20 bottle of champagne, or maybe some chocolates, or whatever that looks like, it's memorable. Or having somebody walk your suitcases up, you know, just little touch points which really define the luxury space versus, you know, even the quote unquote high-end space versus true luxury. Very cool. I'm going to continue here. Would you say, this is a long question, would you say it's the long game, in quotes, or the short game, in quotes, with luxury audiences? For example, are luxury buyers more likely to purchase luxury items as a spur of the moment purchase, or are they more likely to purchase in calculated ways after a long shopping process?
I think it goes both ways. I think some people are just tired of this bullshit and want to get on with their lives and want instant gratification, and they want to spend their money to feel good, which I can definitely relate to. And then I think you have your other end of the spectrum. I mean, it depends, obviously, like where you are as far as your job, you know, if you have a job, if you don't have a job, if you have money saved, if you don't, if you had money stashed away for a certain, like a birthday gift, or this was the Christmas I was going to buy that Chanel bag for myself. And I think that some are more calculated, some, you know, are indecisive. They go back and forth. Like, do I really need that $4,000 bag, or should I save it just in case I then lose my job because we're going into December, you know? So, yeah, I think it goes both ways. I've seen and talked to a lot of individuals, and I feel like it's pretty 50-50 at this point.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, it makes sense. I've got another question here from a fan, Christina. So she runs a high-end architectural firm in Chicago. So Christina.
Oh yeah, let's definitely connect.
Yeah. And she said she will, don't worry. But she said, what are some ways that we can begin building our personal brands, and how can we present ourselves in the marketplace?
Ooh, I love this question. So we're starting to do that now with Sproveries. It's kind of amplifying our brand and our awareness here downtown Chicago. So for example, my personal take on this is that once, you know, the whole modern luxury thing happened and I was no longer working there, it wasn't like the next day I uploaded something on LinkedIn and I told obviously my close, you know, inner circle and my colleagues and my business associates, like what was going on, kind of teased it all out. But then I coordinated with Danielle to tell this story, and how that happened was last Friday, Sproveries put something up on their account that said like, hey, Sam, welcome to the team, a little bio about myself, my Instagram handle. And then I took that and reposted it. And then on the heels of that, obviously then started promoting the VisualFizz, you know, conversation we're having today, so that it kind of told a story of, okay, you haven't seen me active, you're not sure if I'm with modern luxury or not, but now it's all coming together and it tells this story. And I wanted to make it strategic too, so that people could kind of really connect the dots and I could fill in the blanks of, okay, so you were in a magazine and now you're a stone fabricator. So I feel like bridging the gap and telling that story in my voice, in my way, and holding and controlling the messaging was the best way for me and my network to fully understand kind of where I'm at right now. And because of that, I know that Danielle has been very hard at work. So you guys can follow us. It's at Sproveries Custom Counters on Instagram. She has done a fabulous job of posting all of our projects. We have a lot of amazing designers that we work with and builders, and there are just a lot of very cool projects that she's posted. And so it kind of tells that luxury story on the Instagram. So it's kind of all tying it together. So with that, we are now trying to bring our LinkedIn, Facebook, and website kind of current. And then we're working on a marketing campaign to go out into the market. So we're doing these very strategically. We're not in a rush. We're telling our brand story. We're updating our assets. We're making sure, you know, everything looks good, feels good, tells the right story in the right way, and then strategically releasing it into the market.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. That's very cool. I mean, because yeah, your personal story is just as important as your brand story. You know, well, rather, let me rephrase, as the brand that you're working with or the organization, and they do intertwine quite heavily because, you know, that's where you spend half of your time. I will ask one last question before we close out with a couple thoughts. And this is more around consumers. You can talk through COVID if you want, but I think let's keep it, you know, how you want it, right? Let's keep it a little general, because eventually COVID will end. In what ways are luxury audiences different from, let's call them quote unquote standard consumers? You know, I know we touched on it a little bit, but you know, how are they different? How are they treated differently? You know, what does your process look like when selling to them or marketing to them? Any other examples, maybe even that you've had at either organization?
You mean like talking and selling to clients?
Yeah, I mean, you know, because you've worked in a few different spaces. So your clients, I know from our previous experience, one might be media buyers or you know, sellers, and the others are maybe a high-end architectural firm or a condo association that's building. So I let you answer the question in the best of your ability, but I guess I know I make it so difficult. But you know, when you are selling to your clients or customers who already, they know the luxury space and they have certain expectations. How does that differentiate to if you were to sell to a regular consumer?
So I'll equate this to more like modern luxury for, for the time being, only because we would have a lot of individuals that came from luxury brands that had a specific vision and budget to execute their branded elements or their touch points into the market, without really truly understanding all the work that goes behind it. And Sarah can back me up on this. So I think what worked best for me in managing expectations up front is fully understanding and digesting what they're looking for and not promise everything under the stars right away. Have time to understand it, do a little bit of research on them, what they want to do, go back to them and say, okay, because a lot of times these luxury brands, even though they're luxury brands, they don't have luxury budgets. So they want a $50,000 event, but they're only going to spend $10,000. So, I mean, obviously that's a big gap in their vision versus what they can afford and what we can pull off. So I think managing expectations, but understanding, okay, I can get 90% of what you want done, and then having that white glove service of the magazine, the publishing arm, being like, but I can amplify it by providing these 10 things in the back end, maybe having like a surprise element at the event, showing up on time, everything's coordinated, details, all solidified. So they feel comfortable that we know what we're doing with our brand in our hands. I mean, regular consumers too. I mean, obviously, with the magazine we have, everyday entrepreneurs, local businesses and such, but I would say for the majority, I mean, we had everybody from plastic surgeons to, diamond dealers to, hotels and retail. So, I mean, auto, everybody kind of like, they expect I'm paying this premium. I'm coming to you. I expect that you're the best. And so they want the best delivered.
Sure.
And I would say the same thing with Varies. I think being transparent and not over promising and under deliver, even right now I'm in the learning stages of a lot of it, is understanding what they want, like double, triple check that I can do it. And then clearly communicate back to them and say, hey, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, just because some of the answers I don't know myself. So I think authenticity, transparency, managing expectations, but also with that white glove, little Hershey kiss on top is kind of the differentiator for the luxury market.
So I'll ask you, I said last question, but this question has fans too, so I can't ignore it. Let's do it in a way where it's like just a few words can really sum it up here. You talked about your inner circle. What are some of your criteria to select your own?
Let me see.
What is part of your inner circle now? So how do we get chosen?
How do you get chosen for the inner circle? Oh, wow. I mean, I have actually many inner circles. There just kind of goes in and goes smaller. I feel, it kind of goes with like the gut intuition. It's, we do good business together. We worked well together. I can trust you. You can get your stuff done. It's, you can provide one thing. I can provide something else. We have a good rapport, a good respect for each other. I've built many friendships off of clients and partners that I've worked with in the industry. I have friends from my internship still to my first job to this last job. And now, obviously got this job from a friend, from a former colleague. So, I think just being a really good person with great taste kind of gives you the audition.
Awesome. Okay. So we'll hold auditions later. Cool. Guys, I want to thank you so much, Samantha, you as well. Just a really quick, a few things. We're going to send a quick survey after the webinar to everyone who attended. That will help us guide future conversations and topics. Along with that, we're going to send you guys a link to the other Growth Series events. There are a series of them. We're planning to host them every 2 weeks. They'll either be around noon, give or take, as well as 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. But that, this is something that we're going to continue growing, and our hope is to really provide as much expert knowledge, information, fun, data, all that good stuff, similar to how Samantha has provided it. I think she's done an awesome job. She was our test pilot for the first virtual version of this. It's definitely not as fun being able to, see everybody in a room and have drinks afterwards. But I know, Samantha told me she took one ahead of time just in case. Maybe I'll have one now. But we really appreciate everybody hopping on today, as well as anybody who is attending or listening or reading, because we will transcribe all these for the future, and we'll be posting them in that same growth series link as, you know, previous growth series is. Beyond that, as we mentioned, VisualFizz, we're a full service marketing firm. So if you guys need anything, even just to chat about your marketing, your branding, some of your goals, as it pertains to growth in general, that is what we do. We work with most businesses, from startups to well-established Fortune 500 or 1,000 types of companies. And last but not least, I do really want to thank Samantha for her time today. She has a wealth of knowledge and experience, totally awesome. You know, I don't know if she'll accept you into her, at least I don't know if she'll accept me into her inner circle, but I am excited for that next Diamond event. I think I've annoyed her enough times about that event. I just wanted to go. But we really appreciate you coming on board. And once COVID, is gone, what we'd like to do, who knows, is maybe by next year, invite everybody back for a large, conversation or chat or party or whatever it may be. So please do keep in touch with everybody on this channel, everybody from the VisualFizz side, as well as Samantha. Really appreciate everyone's time here, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys. All right, any questions, feel free to shoot us emails or messages, and we'll be happy to either forward them to Samantha or find her on LinkedIn as well. But you'll get a survey soon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.